So I'm glad everybody's here. I'm Benito Garcia, the most rad nerd, and I have a very special guest on, a dear friend of mine. Do you want to go by William Danger Newman, Bill Danger Newman, DM
Bill is
Newman?
Bill is fine.
All right.
Just keep it simple,
Right. Yeah. So Bill and I have known each other now. Not for very long, I guess, if you really think about it. Maybe 3 years, 3.5.
3.5 maybe. It was maybe a year before COVID started, right?
Yeah,
So
I think that's right.
2020. So that would have been 2019.
Yeah.
So yeah, almost 4 years maybe.
Right. So we got introduced through our friend Jenna.
Right.
And you guys have a podcast called, I got it right here. It's called The Galactic Driftwood, but I've got a thing right here. There you go.
Oh, look at that.
So there's a link or at least how to get there on Facebook. I also have one that is just your regular website.
Right.
You probably do most of your stuff on Facebook. Can we leave that one up?
Yeah.
All right, cool. And anyway, Jen invited me on because at the time we had the special effects company. And I think I came on to talk about my book.
Right.
And that was a chance to meet all you guys on the podcast. And we talked about the book a little bit. I don't remember, but I think maybe we slipped in a little bit about maybe Go RPGs or a little bit about some Dragons.
I know there was a little bit of talk of D&D, I think, at some point.
Yeah, I think so. And then I got invited on again, I think, just to talk about Go RPGs, which is just a page on Facebook where you can come hang out and post funny pictures or funny stories or horror stories, or if you got a set of dice that you just got that you really like, of course you can post that and brag about those. And I came on and talked about that. And at the time, we very loosely said we should all, do a one-off or play have a little campaign at some point with all of you guys from Galactic Driftwood or whoever wanted to come play.
Right.
And we did. And then we've been playing ever since, almost nonstop for almost 3 years.
Right.
Easily.
Right.
And then to make a long story short. What's that?
I said to make matters worse, you talked me into. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you didn't. Who'd have thought we'd be where we are right now?
Right.
And when I say that, who would have guessed that you would be DMing?
Right. Yeah, not me.
Especially not probably in the very beginning when I was just talking about.
Right.
But you'd already had some core books, I think.
Yeah, I'd played D&D before in the past, but God, I hadn't played probably since college, and then probably about 10 or maybe 15 years ago, some folks talked Linda and I into joining a Pathfinder campaign, and so we were in that for a couple of months, and then the couple that organized it went through a major split. And that ended the campaign. And we'd gotten all these books and stuff for it because I thought, this seems like pretty cool. So I still have all the books in storage, but we started with D&D since then, thanks to you. So now we're whole hog into that.
Man, once that D&D bug gets a hold of you, you're just in. You're in 1,000%.
Right.
I think about it every day. I'm at least talking to somebody about it every day. I'm probably watching YouTube videos on it every day. I'm bugging everybody in the Discord group with hey, watch this video or check this video out. It's really very informative, and I'm sure I'm getting on everybody's nerves. But
it
takes your life.
Yeah, I had an old friend of mine. She worked with me where I work. She worked for me for a while, and so we get together and see her maybe once or twice a year, usually her and some other friends that we worked with. And so she happened to call me last week because her company's going through some downsizing things. And so they're offering her a buyout. She's going to be 60 in August.
Mm.
And so she called, get some advice, and see what I think about it. And so we got talking. We said, well, why don't we get together? Why don't you come over Saturday? We'll get together. And because I was talking to her about Chat GPT and
Oh yeah.
Leonardo AI and a lot of those tools that I'm using quite a bit now for my Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And but she had never heard of it. And I'm like, how can you not have heard of that? It's just, you can't watch the news. Well, she's like, well, I can't stand watching the news because it's just too depressing. So I'm like, well, yeah, I can understand that. So anyway, I said, well, listen, why don't you come over? We'll do some lunch on the veranda and we'll sit around and I'll show you how these tools work. Because if you do decide to take that buyout, you can use Chat GPT to help you write your resume, or maybe to figure out what you want to do, or, all kinds of stuff like that. So she's like, okay, yeah, that sounds like fun. So she came over and we went through all that stuff. And as I was showing it to her in the left-hand column of Chat GPT, it shows all of your past questions. And all of mine were like, D&D related, and she's like, what a barbarian, what? Just like all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, do you play D&D? No, I don't know anything about it. And I said,
man,
come down to the basement a minute. I'll show you something.
Oh wow.
So I brought her down here and I fired up the whole campaign thing and was showing her the screens and all that stuff. And she's like,
yeah,
oh my God. She goes, I just so want to come sit and listen.
Right?
How it goes. And I'm like, yeah, it'd be awesome. So yeah. So
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm same way. I can't. Linda's like, as soon as I brought it up, I said, oh, you got to come downstairs and check this out. And Linda's like, all right, see you guys in an hour.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I maybe not as much as I used to, but now Meg drags people down here. She'll drag her friends over, or they'll be over at the house and she'll drag them downstairs and just be like, look how big of a nerd my husband is. Look at all this.
Well, and you've got such an awesome setup there. I mean,
thanks. She says it in a nice way, but
yeah.
So it's, and it's only set up. I mean, it looks really cool down here. And sure, there's some art on the wall and stuff like that, but I'm surrounded by necessity. Like there's just books and minis and, handwritten things and anything that'll help you, to play or be a better DM, and just surrounded by it. And it actually makes pretty cool decor kind of just by accident.
Right.
So to keep going with the story, then I've always had a couple of campaigns to play, either run or be in. And it's always on a Wednesday, and they're always opposite weeks of each other. So every week I get to play one way or another.
Yep.
And at one point, then you were on both those Wednesdays also. And it's not that I needed a break or I was looking for a break.
Right.
But I had mentioned to you at one point, how long ago was that been? 6 months, 7 months, maybe?
Yeah, it was like November, I think, of last year, maybe.
And you're so fun to play with, and you're so
thank you.
A personality, a big personality at the table. Do super fun voices, and you're just into the game. And there was one day when I was at work, and I thought, God, I should hit Bill up, because I think I've mentioned it, asked him once before if he had any interest in DMing, and I felt like he kind of maybe sort of brushed past it.
Yeah.
So I let a little time sit. I came back to you again, and I had just said, hey, I think you'd be really good at being a dungeon master. Do you have any? Have you given any more thought? I think maybe is the way I worded it.
Yeah.
And I think you said maybe. Do you?
Yeah. I said, well, yeah, I don't know.
Had you already been thinking about it?
Because I think you might have mentioned it earlier, maybe, or something, and so it was kind of sitting there in the back of my mind, And I thought, well, I've got this area of the basement that we used to use for our podcast when we were doing them live. And then, thanks to COVID, everything went online. We started using tools like StreamYard and Zoom and stuff like that. And it was so convenient that, because you don't have to have 6 or 7 people drive to your house and wait for the last person to get there because they're running late, kind of a thing, And so we just started doing everything online. So I had this big table that we used for our podcast that wasn't being used. And so I'm like, well, I guess I do have an area. So in the back of my mind, it's kind of gelling. And then then you bring it up again, and I'm like,
Right. And so I mentioned, you said, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I could take a little break, and maybe if you want, this is where my mind was on it.
Yeah,
I was like, well, I could take a break, and it'd be nice to take a little breather, I guess.
sure.
And
Let
if
me
you, I
dip
think
my
I
toe
mentioned,
in the water.
yeah, I think I said something like if you want to do a one-off or whatever, I
Yeah,
think that would be awesome just to try it. Like you said, put your toe in the water,
yeah.
and it went from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in 5.5 seconds. We were
Yep.
ready to roll, full campaign,
Yep.
full world, full, just ready to roll. I know it didn't happen that fast, but it felt like it happened that
It
fast.
it. You asked Linda. It happened that fast.
And I remember we showed up. I think maybe you were giving us updates as you
Yeah.
were setting up the table and getting your monitor and our nice chairs and our side
Right.
tables, and everything was coming along. And I remember getting the pictures, and I kept thinking, what the F is going on? This is crazy for a one-off. And then once we got into it, though, and I seen how much heart and soul had gone into it, I was like, I just lost my DM spot for Wednesday. Bill took it over, which was fine.
Yeah.
It didn't hurt my feelings, not even at all. So don't ever think that. It never hurt my feelings. But in the beginning, I was like, oh man, I kind of like being the DM, forgetting what it was like to play. And now I get to play every other Wednesday, DM the other Wednesday. It's like, this is so refreshing to get to play a character, because playing a character also helps you be a better dungeon master.
Sure.
Just watching how the game goes and how pacing works and story and different things that come up. So tell me about how nervous you were for your first game.
The first time so I think we started planning for it in November when you talked to me. And then I'm like, because I'd already been thinking about it for a while. So then, and kind of, I don't know, I might have maybe offhand mentioned it to Linda, once or twice, or once at least. And so then, when you brought it back up, it's like November, and I'm like, well, Black Friday sales will be coming. It might be a chance to, because I wanted to get, one of those flat monitors for the table so I could do the digital maps and stuff.
Right. Which is it's very beautiful. Insert picture here.
Right.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And so I wanted to do that. And we needed to get some new chairs because we just had, wooden dining room chairs. They didn't even have cushions on them at the time. And I'm like, nobody's going to want to sit on these for hours, And so, just started getting out there and figuring out what I needed and started ordering stuff. And Black Friday sales came and we got more stuff. And Linda's even like, Linda's like, this is going to be more than a one-off, isn't it?
We all knew.
I know. Right. So, yeah. So we just started going whole hog into the thing. And then I found a couple of books on Amazon, and they had like different. One book was like sort of like little one-off things, a whole bunch of them, and you could just go through and pick from them to run a campaign. So I thought, well, let me start here and see how it goes. Well, there was one about this paladin that was in this tomb that was, trapped in there and kind of a thing. And so I thought, well, that would be kind of good for a one-off. And so then the more I started thinking about it, I thought, well, it could actually be a little longer than a one-off because I could tie in some of this other stuff to it. And this could be just a small little side piece of it that kind of gets everything kicked off. And so, once you start down this road, every spare moment you have where you're not doing something else, your campaign comes up in your mind.
Yep.
And you'll get new ideas, and you'll be like, ooh, yeah, that would be cool. Let's do this. Let's see how this works. So
yeah, you're right. And then were you just like writing notes on sticky everything and notepads?
I first started just using Windows Notepad, started putting stuff in that and saving it into a directory. Well, then I had so many different little notepad things all in this one directory. I was like, all right, I need subdirectories. Let me start doing that. And then it was like, okay, I really want to expand this thing, and Notepad just doesn't have a lot of the tools that Word has for doing stuff like that. And so I'm like, okay, I need to move all this stuff into Microsoft Word. So I started doing that. And so then I started getting directories for images and maps, and
yeah,
it just ballooned.
Yeah, my computer's just completely full of stuff. But I just keep legal notepads everywhere, at home, at work. They're upstairs.
You can jot down notes.
Yeah, so I think there's one between our couches, and then the same thing. Like I just write something down, and then I have all these notepads, and I'm not really sure what went with where, and then I gotta reorganize everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's not just if you're a dungeon master. If you're a player, also, it's just in your head. You're just constantly either reliving what just happened, or you're thinking about your character, or it just sort of takes over for sure. So you mentioned Linda, your wife. How instrumental was she in getting this whole thing up and going too, and being a part of it?
Yeah. Well, she's a big partner. So, I mean, pretty much anything we do, we go into it together. And, we've been married for 41 years. So, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't probably still be married, if we didn't hang out. And she's very, very flexible, adaptable kind of a thing. So, I'm the one I'm kind of the ideas person, and she kind of helps me get them implemented. So we kind of make a good team that way. And she helps keep me organized, which is really helpful. And so I started getting in, and she was there, and I'm like, well, do you want to play, or do you want to help DM? And she goes, well, I think I'll just help DM for a while, because she'd been playing and gone through a couple of characters and wasn't really sure what she wanted to do. And I'm like, all right, well, I can use the help DMing, because getting started, there's going to be a lot going on. I'm going to have a lot to keep track of, and so that I can use the help getting started. And it was really helpful in January when I kicked off. And that first session, I'm sitting there and I'm reading to you guys. You're coming into that city of regalia, and you're coming in at different times, and each of you are getting to different hotels. And as I'm reading some of that stuff, my hands are shaking a little bit, because I'm nervous, trying to make sure I don't screw something up, but it passed pretty fast, I gotta say. And I just loved it. And
and plus we're all friends. Like,
right.
If you screw something up, it
wasn't a big deal, but but you kind of want things to go right, and so and they did. They went really good. So
and we've been playing now for how long for this campaign? You said we
started like January 4th, I think.
January. Gosh, so 6 months then.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's so when so we started, you had the one-off idea with the paladin, and then it turned into this whole giant world. We were supposed to go to a certain place. We got sidetracked a couple of times with different things. So where did you get the inspiration for the things outside of the mini campaign that you'd started on? It just came to you?
Yeah, I mean, so the whole thing with the Paladin Tomb, obviously initially that started out to be it, right? And so I'm like, well, I started thinking about all these different player characters, and how am I going to get them all together and get them to this tomb thing, right? And I think D&D is sort of what do I want to say? It's like a standard way of meeting the other players. You meet in a tavern, right?
Yes.
It's almost a cliche thing, right? And so I think you've kind of turned that on its ear a little bit. And a lot of times with you, we're meeting in a prison or we're arrested or something, right? Which is cool. And so I thought, okay, so I want to do something a little different. How do I get all these characters together? And so I thought, well, okay, what if they're all on their way? So this Jocelyn thing, she died, 1,000 years ago. What if she sacrificed her life for this country of Termish, gave her life, and because of that, they have these massive celebrations every year, these massive games in the capital. and all of you guys are coming in from different directions, and you're going to meet this carriage. You've bought these. There's like different companies that sell vacation packages, right? And so you buy this Jostle Fest, because Jocelyn's the name of the paladin in question. You buy this Jostle Fest package, and it includes your transportation from a large city to the capital, and you get to stay in this fancy club called the Champions Club, and you get tickets to the games, and if you want to play in the games, compete at a beginning level or whatever, you can do that. And I thought, okay, that'll be a great way. I'll bring everybody in. We'll start them off at different hotels, and then maybe each of the characters, based on their backstory, will have something happen to them that night, and that'll kind of be a little glue that'll start bringing them all together, and then they can go to that tomb. And so that was kind of how it was all going to start. And then when the thing ended and you guys saved Jocelyn, then you could have all gone your separate ways onto the capital and done whatever, right? And the campaign could have ended at that point. And so, then I just started thinking about, okay, well, maybe it doesn't end when they get to Allegan. Maybe this is just the start, and the whole thing with Jocelyn, there's actually something underneath that's going on, and the demon that tricked Jocelyn and got her to sacrifice herself and turn her back on her god, because she's a paladin, so she's got this god that she worshipped, and she went back on her oath and was tricked. Maybe those demons are up to something else, and maybe they're working in conjunction with some other folks and doing some stuff, and then it just started ballooning out of control.
Right?
Yeah, as it would do. Yeah.
Well, and I see you use our backstories really quite a bit, and it's really great to see that intertwined in the stories. So then once you kind of got everybody's characters, I assume that also helped to figure out a lot of things that were going to happen with your game that maybe filled in some blanks, or at least helped you get to your destination with your story. Yeah,
and I think I don't think I can say enough about the backstory, because those backstories, I read those, and then in figuring out how I was going to have everybody have an experience related to their backstory, really kind of informed the direction of the whole story, and gave me sort of a direction to send it all. So, we've got a character that's a magician, a wizard, and he ends up starting to have these visions, future visions. And I thought, because of the way he was born, he was conceived in this pool in Termish, a place called a Starfall Pool or something like that. And I thought, well, what if there was something in that water, because maybe an actual star or an asteroid or something crashed into it, and there's something, in my mind, I'm thinking something like the midichlorians from Star Wars, right? That he's conceived in that pool, and because of that stuff in that pool gives him some ability to have future visions. And I thought, well, that would be kind of cool, because then I can give the players some idea of a future event that's coming, and that'll kind of help give them some idea of the direction that they need to go for the story wise, so that it's just not kind of a wide open free for all thing. But, well, that would be kind of good for that. And all of the other characters had something in their stories too that I could use. You were playing a paladin, and he worshipped the god Torm, and I thought, okay, well, what if he has a vision with his god the first night, who tells him about these other people that he's going to meet, and that it's crucial that he develop a friendship with them, because one of the players is playing a bug, and a thrycreen, right? And your character had a thing for bugs, And I
even knew a bug was going to be in the game, and I don't know why I put in my backstory that I hated bugs. It wasn't in my brain. I didn't connect the two. That I had to deal with that, because there's one in the game that's a character.
I know. And so I'm thinking, oh shit, how am I going to get those two together? And then I thought, okay, well, what his god Torm shows him an ideal vision of his future where he's saving the world, kind of a thing, and it's all because of his partnership with this Thrycreen insect guy. And I thought, well, that could be cool. So that might help him realize that he's got to find a way to come to grips with this fear because it's necessary for his future, right? And then I thought, okay, and then what if these Thrycreen, they don't speak a normal language because they have mandibles, they don't have mouths and vocal cords. So they communicate by sending their thoughts into the mind of a person they want to communicate with. And then that person just talks back in their normal language. And I thought, well, what if he's in the same hotel with your character and Torm arranges it so that he sees the same visions and the same experience that you're seeing. He's not there with you physically in that thing, but he's almost like he's receiving all of those thoughts. So you both kind of get the idea that you're supposed to be together. So that kind of informed that. And so, yeah, it just kind of, it was really organic the way it evolved. And, I can't say enough about how those characters' backstories really influenced the direction I took the story and how everything just kind of weaved together. So,
yeah, it's great. It feels like, what do I want to say? It feels whole. And when you bring in our backstories so quickly, it really felt like we're part of the game. It wasn't like why are we here? Or just
right.
Where are we going? What's going on? What's happening? With the backstories so quickly, and you're setting that up where those things can be set up, a lot of different ways. But that was nice. It happened so quick, and we're all like, okay, so I get it. So, and hearing each other's backstories and interactions while we're all sitting around the table, you can't help but understand that we're all supposed to be drawn together and do these things together. And so,
well, and I think the other thing that's kind of good about it is that I think a lot of times in D&D campaigns, just because people maybe are busy and they work on their backstory and their character, and they come to the table knowing their story, but they don't really know anything about the other characters. Maybe they didn't take the time to read the character's backstory, or maybe it didn't get posted or whatever. And so I thought, well, this is a good way to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page. They understand the other characters in the game, and they understand some elements of their backstory that will then inform them as to what to expect from that character's actions in the game.
Right. Yeah. You're 100% right. It worked out great. So let's get into being a new DM though, and issues that come up at the table. So how do you handle, let me see, how do I want to say this? So being a new DM, you're getting constantly bombarded with things that you, even as a seasoned DM, you just get bombarded with things you're just not expecting,
right?
Or used to, or as a new DM, you kind of put your campaign on a path, and you try to stick with that because you're just not, you haven't played long enough really to know where if something takes a major left turn, like what am I going to do? Because this is not what I was planning. So, so what has been the biggest hurdle then with us being players and you being a new DM? What's some of the hurdles that you noticed right away, that something you had to pull something out of your have we ever really thrown you for a loop yet?
No, not really. I don't think. I can't think of a time that I was really thrown off. The only time I've been thrown off a little bit is, so occasionally I'll have my wife Linda play an NPC.
Yeah.
Or our friend Katie Otten, who's an actor here locally. I'll have her come in and play an NPC. And so the only thing that kind of throws me off occasionally is if they say stuff that they're not supposed to say accidentally, right? So that's something that you got to be prepared for and able to recover from. And so I'm figuring out. I think the thing that helps me the most is that when I go into a campaign night, I am very well prepared for it. I've got the story down. I have, pretty much written down what the characters, my NPCs, are going to be saying, or the information that they're going to convey. So, so I don't have to kind of remember it on the spot because, look, I'm almost 65. So trying to remember stuff and not forget key parts is tough. And so for me, having it written down, that takes a huge load of stress off because I know, okay, this is the information I've got to convey. This is information that I may convey if the players do X, Y, Z, and maybe make another connection, kind of a thing. And so having that all prepared takes a lot of the worry out of it, and a lot of having to think it up on the spot. So that way, if something does suddenly take a left turn, I know how to get it to take 2 more left turns and get back on the path. Right?
I totally got you. And I do the same thing. I think we all want to try to stay on our path, and it can veer off a little and come back, like when we were just playing last week, and I just for dramatic like an insert, as when you guys were hiding and the guy came and peed on the drunk guy came and peed on the rock. That was not really to be anything, but just like, oh crap, we got to be quiet and we got to hide against it. And
Yes.
I heard through the grapevine you might have talked somebody into attacking the poor guy who you might have encouraged an attack.
Yes.
That's a left turn.
Right.
I don't know why in my brain I didn't even prepare for it. Well, okay, here's why I didn't prepare for it. I just thought of it. I was just like, well, you guys have been doing a great job with your stealth checks.
Right.
Everything's going really well. You've been super sneaky through this village.
Right.
And now when we got a moment, I'm going to just slip a guy in. Because you not that you had it easy, but you're doing really good. It's like, I'm just going to slip this guy in. Okay, let's see what they do. If they're, I didn't know you were going to attack the poor guy.
Well, and I thought, oh fuck, he's gonna see us or hear us because he was right there at that rock, and we were right standing beside the building, just kind of hiding in the shadows. And so I'm telling Ben, you got to get your character over, go over there and slit his throat, get him, get him out of it. You got to take him out or we're doomed.
Right.
And but he wouldn't do that. Apparently, he's not like a murder hobo kind of a guy.
Not yet. I think he's getting there.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so they didn't do it, and then Barry, he just took it in a completely weird direction, which was hilarious.
It turned into a drinking game.
Yes.
So drunk guy taking a pee on a rock turns into, we got to kill this guy, which then turns into, no, let's trick the other guy who happens to see Barry chokehold him.
Right.
Another guy, let's turn it into a drinking game, and it turned out just fine. Nobody had to die, and everybody went on their merry way. And
it was hilarious. And he actually brought that drinking game back up later on when he burst into a tavern, right? Yes.
So that's like as you start to do more DMing and you get further down the road, it's so fun when your characters just do those crazy things. And I'm not going to go on and on about our campaign, but just a quick note, like when you guys when Barry went into the tavern because all the thieves were in there.
Yeah.
Well, let's just see where this goes. All I have for a plan is that there's a bartender and 3 drunk guys in the let's see what you guys do. I didn't have to have anything written out. I didn't have to have a plan. I didn't have to have anybody giving an info dump.
Right.
Let's see what happens. And it was the coolest thing
it was
ever. And I love when that happens, that organic stuff. Like I'll give you the situation and I'll give you just a couple of points about it.
Right.
Okay, here we go. I love that.
Let's roll initiative.
Oh, I just love it. Like I had, that whole thing where you guys had the whole village to go into. Yeah. I knew where the handmaiden was.
Yeah.
I knew where the mayor's daughter was.
Yeah.
In relation to the leader of the Thieves Guild. That's all I knew. That's literally all I knew.
Well,
we started at 7 and got done, I think, a little after 10.
Yeah.
You guys literally filled in all the blanks. All the blanks. I threw in so much stuff just off the top of my head while we were playing, just to kind of give little things for you guys to interact with.
Right.
You guys wrote that whole story.
The couple that was in the throes of passion in the work shed, that was hilarious.
That's so good. Well, and I think somebody did. I believe somebody was just somebody had stuck their head out the window. And I think it was, did I see anything or do I hear anything? And I'm like, what could be going on that you could hear that would be interesting? So I'm like, okay, 2 people are having sex across the street in the barn, and you can maybe hear that. So yeah, it's, like I said, once you do more DMing and you're able to just go, I'm just here. I'll tell you guys what to roll for. You tell me what's happening.
Right.
It really leads to some crazy things. So
it's like, D&D is kind of like the ultimate improv session, right?
It is, right?
For DMs as well as players.
Mm-hmm.
You're all just kind of coming up with it on the fly, and you've got a story arc that you're trying to navigate there, but all the details of that is getting filled in by everybody playing the game, and that's what makes it fun and exciting and completely different every time, because you just don't know what to expect. No matter how well you have it planned out, shit's gonna happen.
Exactly. So one of my very first DM, when I said I had never DM'd, and my very first thing was, I'm going to do Ravenloft. We're going to go through Strahd's Castle. That was my first attempt at being a DM.
Okay.
And with it being very new, I was very, very railroady. This is what's This is what's going to happen. And this is going to do this and do that. And now that I'm doing it again, the second time, 4 years later, it's such a different experience. So after you do this for a while and you go back and look, and you'll be like, I'm such a different DM than I was when I first started. So it's really fun growing and just getting to play with our friends is awesome. So you've got some really cool tools that you use to help you be as great as DM as you are.
Thanks.
Some of them physical, some of them digitally. And you should definitely share some of this stuff, because there's a couple things you do or have that I just love for sure.
So we've got that digital screen, so we can put up these digital environments, and I'll just throw a shout out there for Dynamic Dungeons, which makes cool, top-down views of everything from bridges over gorges and waterfalls and taverns and all kinds of inns and things, and it's all gridded, so you can put your minis on there and you move them around. And so the way my campaign's going is it's kind of a hybrid thing. So we're using Fantasy Grounds to keep track, let it do the rolls. You roll the dice in there and it does all the math for you and all that stuff. Figures out, who's getting wounded and all that stuff. And then the characters are bringing their minis. And so I do have a 3D printer, but it's a filament printer. It's not resin. So it doesn't do quite as good a quality, I think, on the minis. And the other thing, you print the minis for NPCs or whatever, but then you got to paint them. And, I'm not big into painting, and I'm red-green color deficient, so I don't see colors that well. And so, painting things for me, when I go up and get dressed in the morning, Linda will say, "Why are you wearing that?" That looks good, Linda. No, change your shirt. Kind of
so we could have crazy looking minis if we let that to you.
We might. Yeah, if you left it to me, you'd be like, geez, what kind of a world are we living in? So, but some of these AI tools that are coming out, we mentioned before, ChatGPT, that's great. That's a great tool for, say I need an NPC. I can tell ChatGPT, give me a Dungeons and Dragons styles NPC that's good at, running a shop where he sells shrubs and fungal things and, herbs and all that kind of stuff, and give me the race and the class and a little bit of his backstory kind of a thing. And it'll generate that all for me. And so then I can just take that and take the stuff that I like that it came up with and plug it into my campaign. Similarly, some of the AI tools that you can use to generate images now. I've got Stable Diffusion on a PC here that I can use, but for that to work, it's really got to be on a pretty powerful computer because it takes a lot of resources. Well, I've got a lot of laptops around that are older laptops that aren't really able to run that. And I don't always want to have to come down the basement and fire up that computer to do it. So this online tool, Leonardo.ai, is a great tool that I can run it on any machine virtually, right? And you can go out there and you tell it what you want, and you want a character that looks like XYZ, it's a human, it's an elf or whatever, and give me 4 samples of it. And this person's supposed to be a wizard and they're in this shop or whatever. And it'll basically come up with 4 pictures. And usually you get one that's really pretty good, pretty close to what you want in that. So I started doing that, thinking, well, that'll be good because I'll just show the players who they're talking to, because it always helps to see a face. Because that can convey a lot about the person that they're dealing with as well, right? Because you can tell the AI, well, I want this guy to look a little bit sinister or shady, or, So I started doing that, and then I thought, well, what if I could print them a little bit smaller and put them on stands, and instead of having a 3D mini, I've got something that'll sit on a stand that I can actually put on the board and move around. So I looked on Amazon, and I found, I'll hold it up to the camera here, this neat little stand.
Yeah.
I can hold it up there. So it's like a little plastic stand. And so what I did, so this is one of the characters that I printed off from that Leonardo.ai site. And what I did is I put it into Microsoft Word, and I used a template for business cards. And I found that I could put 3 images on a card, and I just reversed them for the back side of the card and kind of fed the paper in twice. And so then you get these different characters. So,
that's definitely the size of a business card. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So together it's a business. So I can get 3 on there, and then I just cut them and just fold the bottom a little bit so that it's thicker, so that it sits in there nice and tight. And so this guy's one of the bad guys. So you can see he kind of looks.
He looks like a bad guy.
Yeah, right. He's kind of an evil elf, and then this is kind of a good, nice wizard. So he kind of looks like me. Right? And so this guy.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So he's a doppelganger, which you guys already know about, but haven't really seen his true face yet. And then this lady's captain of a city watch. So, so I've got a whole bunch of these printed out, and it makes it great because you can see them. I don't have to worry about painting them. And I did a whole sheet of these, I just ran them through the printer, print them off, and it maybe took me an hour to print them off and do that. And so they sit on the board, and they just look great. People can see them no matter which side of the table they're on. They can see the character.
They look fantastic. I love those. I love that because I like painting minis, but I also like not painting minis. I don't have to. But yeah, when I saw that you brought those out the first time, I was like, God, what a freaking great idea. They're beautiful.
Yep.
I know almost everybody that's a female in your little things you print off are gorgeous.
Right. That's the nice thing about AI is it doesn't do ugly people for the most part.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, answer me this then.
Yes.
How many from beginning to end? How many? I mean, when I'm talking about all the steps to get to what we see on the board, how many software programs are you using? 6, maybe? I'm talking everything.
Well, let's see. So there's Fantasy Grounds.
Right.
which I run on a laptop, a separate laptop, and and then everybody else runs Fantasy Grounds, and they all log into that campaign. So that's what the character, that's what the abilities are, and where everybody's weapons are. So it calculates all that.
Character sheets, basically.
Yep. And then I've got dynamic dungeons, which ties to my monitor for the maps and stuff. And then I've got, I use YouTube for a lot of the music and stuff that's going on in the background while we're playing. Yep. So, like you can see behind Benito there, he's got a big monitor back there behind him. So I've got like
I didn't use it, but I got one.
Yeah. So I've got like monitors like that on either side of the room, and they're all hooked into the same Roku stick, so that once I play something on the Roku stick, it automatically goes out to both monitors, so everything's in sync. And if I need to play fancy music because you guys are in a castle somewhere meeting a king at a big reception like you were last time, we've got that music going in the background. And let's see what else. Well, Leonardo AI, right, for the images, and then Chat GPT to help me with a lot of the characters. Not just characters, but like when you guys are going to you guys are at the capital city now, right? So I told Chat GPT, I said, well, give me a list of 15 different shops that D&D type shops that the characters might find there. Give me a little, give me the name and the race of the owner of the shop and what sort of merchandise they might offer. And so it just, boom, spit it out in a heartbeat. And, awesome. I did the same thing for like, because these Jostle Fest games are going on there. So, I said, give me a list of these different games and what arena names that they might be played at. And so I kind of used it to help me flesh out the town so that I can bring elements into the story when I need to, or if the campaign takes a left turn and somebody says, well, I want to go check out a game or something like that. I've got all that kind of set off to the side so I can reference it quickly. So I think those 5 are the...
Oh, no, you got a voice changer.
Oh, yeah, forgot about that. Yeah, so there's a thing called Voice Mod, which is a really handy tool. Basically, I've got a headset. It's plugged into the same system that runs my dynamic dungeons. And then they've got all these different voice profiles you can pick. So there's one that sounds like a robot, which I use for my Warforged guys that are driving the carriages that are taking you guys to these different towns. There's a different voice for Inax, who's this powerful wizard that runs this evil eradication league that you guys are working for now. And just a bunch of different voices that are in there, which works pretty good. And I found it was much better to use it with a headset because otherwise I got a lot of feedback and it didn't work so well. So it works pretty good with the headset though. So
all right. So that's you. You're at 6. Yes. Now you have people at your table who are not utilizing, but are a part of this.
Yes.
So then you got people at the table that use Roll20. You have people at the table who have apps that just roll dice on their phones. So there's 8. We have 8 bits of software so far, and we're probably missing something that's
well, and then you've got some of the people at the table are using their laptops to look up information on races or characters, or something, or magic items or whatever as things come up in the game. They're like, oh, okay, what does that really do? So.
Yeah, Ben does that a lot, and I'm always yelling at him. I'm always sitting next to him, like, get off your computer.
And Seth does too.
He's like, what? He goes, what? He goes, I was just looking up to see if I knew this language. I go, you don't know if you know this language. That's what you're looking for. He's like, oh, okay. And he shuts it down. Or I'll peek over, and he's always got Thrycreen. Just there's so much information on the internet about Thrycreen that I notice he has that up a lot, and he's looking through things, and Ben is definitely the type of player who loves the deep dive into whatever character. So he's always looking for every tiny little bit of information he can about his character. So I'd say 8 to 10 bits of software.
Yeah,
for sure. Back in the day, you had
a
piece
book.
Of paper. You didn't have a mini.
Right.
You had some dice, and you had
Yeah.
the thing to go
And of
along with
course,
it.
you can still do it that way. All
100%.
these tools, you don't have to have all of the tools, right? You can just do it the old school, like you used to do
Yep.
it, and that still works. But as you see some of these tools and you look at them and you think, wow, that is really cool. I think that would really add something good to the game. And
Right.
so you bring that in, and then everybody comes in. And the first time I was at your place and we saw that dynamic dungeons map, I'm like, what the fuck
I
is
know.
this? Oh my
Dynamic
God, that is
Dungeons
so
is just,
cool.
yeah,
Right?
it upped my game to, just crazy. It's
Right.
amazing what Dynamic Dungeons does. And if you don't know what that is, you can find him on YouTube. He has a Patreon for sure.
Yep.
He's not the only one out there that has digital moving maps, but he's definitely my favorite for sure. But
Yeah.
Going back to the old school way, I didn't have any more fun or less fun than I am now.
Right.
But as far as the experience goes, just visually and being a dungeon master, it just helps you to bring it to your character so much better. I feel like it's
Yeah.
not that we're having more fun. It doesn't make it more fun, but it makes it more engaging. It's just you're just really into it when you can see, because I can remember drawing on graph paper and you just draw a squiggly circle and you're like, this is a tree, and this box over here is a room, and there's little boxes of chair, and this is a death. There's just scribbles everywhere on a piece of paper.
Right.
And you have to use your imagination, which is fine. That's
well, I think that's a cool thing, because at its core, D&D is a theater of the mind kind of a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by that same token, you kind of want to put some guardrails in there for the mind, so that all the characters at the table kind of are seeing things from the same perspective, right? So if you're bringing in a monster or a strange place, everybody can look at it and they're kind of seeing the same thing. So they're all playing from that same base perspective. And you don't have somebody thinking, oh, I envisioned this cave as being this massive thing, and somebody else sees it as just a small claustrophobic cave. And as a result, that informs how they're going to play their character in that game. And so they may not play it the same as somebody else. And then you got two characters saying, well, why'd you do that?
True.
And so I think that helps get everybody on the same level playing field to start, and reduces a little bit of the confusion, I think, that might come out.
Yeah, you're right. I'm part of a Discord D&D game, and everything is literally just typed out. We don't use any visuals. There's no maps. There's no nothing. All it is just you type out what you see, what you do, interactions, all that stuff. And there's several times that what you just said has come up where, one of the players in the campaign, I saw something completely flipped around backwards, or they thought something was in one spot and it turned out in my mind it was over here. It even came down to the size, even just a gem or, something that they saw in my mind was big. And their mind was just tiny, but it's just And that actually, it didn't throw a monkey wrench or anything, but when they did something with this particular item, I was like, how did you do that? Like, it's huge. And they're like, well, I thought it was just little.
Right.
And so, yeah, exactly what you're saying. It gets everybody on the same page, and it just really helps things to go along and takes out some of that confusion for sure. So, yeah. How about, what has been your favorite thing as a dungeon master so far?
I think my favorite thing is, when I'm designing a session in my mind, I'm thinking about, okay, here's the situation I'm setting up. Like the Captivarium is a prime example, right? So we had this session where Benito was going to bring in a new character into the game, and we're like, well, how are we going to bring that new character in? And so he's you want to tell him a little bit about your character of Veldaxon?
I can tell a little bit because I don't know who's going to see this yet.
Sure. Okay.
So, well, you know what? I can't tell you. No.
Okay. All right. So no. So anyway,
ruin the surprise.
Right.
But it's very interesting.
Good point. So anyway, so he's bringing in this new character, and how are we going to bring this new character into the game? Because these guys are kind of out in the field doing their stuff, right? And so I was thinking, well, what if we had this group of slavers and they've captured Benito's character and they're going to sell him off at a slave auction kind of a thing? And maybe it's not just slaves, but they also do exotic creatures, and I can bring in all of these weird creatures that you see in D&D, but you don't often get a chance to fight because your characters aren't powerful enough. They, obliterate them. And so I like, okay, I need a name for this place. Chat GPT to the rescue, right? I'm like, give me 15 names for a place where slavers would be selling people and exotic creatures. And one of them was Captivarium. And I'm like, oh, that is fucking awesome. I love that name. That just puts a picture right in my mind, right? Mm-hmm. So we have the Captivarium, and then I found this map that I had designed that I had to kind of modify heavily that showed it was kind of maybe it's supposed to be like a zoo or something, but I was able to modify it and turn it into this Captivarium and put all these different cells in there, and we had all kinds of creatures, and a lot of them were kind of deadly creatures too. And and of course it was this big wall. There was like 15-foot high wall around this thing because they had like a Tyrannosaurus in there and a lot of these big creatures that they didn't want getting out. And there was only one way in, one big door, heavily guarded. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so I'm looking at this from a strategic point of view, and I'm thinking, well, if it was me, I'd go around to the backside stealthily because you've got that thri-kreen bug guy, right, that can jump really far. Like he could jump up on the wall, throw ropes down to people, jump down the other side. You guys go in the back way. You find Benito's new character. You break him out over the wall, and boom, you're done.
Boom, done. 15 minutes.
Right. That's a short deal. So that was like kind of a small part of the campaign because I'm like, okay, well, then they're going to go on and they're going to do all this stuff. No. So, yeah. So they decided to just go in the front door and they concoct this elaborate story about wanting to sell somebody to the slave traders and make a profit. And oh my God. And then...
Go ahead.
Yeah, and then it just just watching that whole discussion take place, I'm like, never in a million years would I have thought that they would have tried to go through the front door and come up with this elaborate, story. And so I'm just sitting there smiling, laughing because I'm thinking, oh my God, that is so not how I would have seen this we're going, right? So that to me is the fun stuff, is presenting you guys with this scenario and then seeing how your minds work together to come up with a unique way to solve it and get out of the predicament or accomplish whatever goal you've got.
Well, that was your left turn then. You said you hadn't really been left turn.
Yeah, right. I mean, it wasn't so much of a left turn because I was prepared for if you guys got in there and shit went down, right? Yeah. I just wasn't thinking you were going to go in the front door, and I had guards there, and so I had everything set up to play out if things got out and stuff started happening, right? And that's the part where you kind of got a plan for, well, what if they get in? Even if you go in the back way, somebody sees you, some shit starts happening. And I thought the bad guy, he's got remote control of all the cage doors, right? So I figured if he saw you guys and thought shit was going down, he's going to start releasing creatures on his own. So I kind of had that. Yeah, so I had that all prepared. So it was just a matter of, instead of everybody running to the back to get you guys, they're running to the front or wherever you guys happen to be. So it wasn't a huge thing that threw me off. I was kind of ready to be able to handle that.
Like it.
But it was just fun to see, and I'm just sitting back there smiling. And the hardest part for me is trying to keep a straight face, right? Because I think because I'm laughing at how you guys are coming up with unique ways to solve the thing that I hadn't foreseen.
Yeah.
And I think, I gotta not laugh because these guys are gonna think that I'm up to something, and that my laugh is because I'm really gonna fuck with these guys when they get in here. And this is my plan all along, is just to kill them, right? And then
Right.
they're falling into my plan, but that's not the case at all. I'm just sitting there because I'm thinking, I didn't even, imagine you guys doing this, and this is just fucking hilarious. So yeah,
That whole scenario made me laugh because we worked so hard. When I think back on it, this is what made me laugh. We worked so hard on a plan to get in the gate, so hard on what we're gonna do, and
right.
and getting the Thri-Kreen, the giant bug guy, and pretending like two people in our group had captured him, and now we want to sell him to the Captivarium to make some money to get into the door, get into the gate, or through the gate into the Captivarium. And then, but then once we got in there, we didn't have a plan.
I know.
We're just like
the whole thing strategizing how to get in, and then they're like, "Oh shit, that worked. Now what do we do?"
Now that we're in, what do we do? Yeah, and that was funny too, because my other character, Swift, had already been in there, once. He had a layout. We could have come up with some kind of plan based on what Swift had known. Nah,
nope.
Let's just get in there. We'll just figure out. We'll just kill everything. Oh, how funny!
Yeah, no, that was awesome.
That was a good time. So here's a question for you.
Yes.
I'm very curious about your answer as a new DM.
Sure.
So how hard is it, being a new DM, to say no to your players?
Yeah, it can be tough, because you don't want to crush somebody's spirit, right? And everybody's playing the game because they want their character to be, a hero kind of a thing, right? They want to go in and they want to do big things, and so you don't necessarily want to crush that, but at the same time, you need to be judicious in how you allow things to happen, right? Because you don't want one player to get an unfair advantage, because they're able to do stuff that maybe they just take for granted that they can do, instead of maybe rolling that ability, or earning that thing that they want to do. So that's a big part. I think even more so than that is because I'm as I'm running the campaign and there's a lot going on, sometimes characters say, well, I want to do something, and I'm like, okay, yeah, and I don't think about saying, okay, well, you're going to have to roll for that ability, because I'm kind of focused on what else is going on in the room necessarily. And so then if I have a chance to think about it later, then I come up and I say, oh yeah, I should have said this about that. So, it's kind of a learning process, especially as you're a new DM, right? And 100%. You kind of start figuring out, oh yeah, I should have had them roll for that instead of just letting that happen, or that sort of thing. So I think that's the big thing.
And that'll come for sure. But what's fun too is when you make people roll, it's not always that the fun comes from a successful roll and this thing just happens because they wanted to. A lot of the times, I know you know what I'm about to say, is the fun comes from the failure. Yeah.
Right.
That can really alter, a lot, not just the story necessarily as a whole, but in that immediate thing that's happening. Right. Yeah. It can really cause a lot of things to happen when people fail, a roll. So,
right. Well, it was like, at the Captivarium when you and Ben were chasing the Gavran Blacktooth, the leader of the slavers, right? And Ben's trying to roll to grapple him, and he keeps rolling ones. And, and because he failed so horribly, Gavran was able to get into his safe house and, just let hell loose on you guys. So, so that failures, while the player may be like, oh, fuck, kind of a thing, it really kind of makes it even more exciting, I think, a lot of times. Because then it's like, oh my God, now what are we going to do?
Right. And as players, we love rolling dice. Love rolling dice. Love taking the chances. Is it going to work or not going to work? It's the best part of it is just let's see what's going to happen.
And I think if there's a lesson that I've learned, it's that because when you go in, you think, oh yeah, God, I got to have this great roll kind of a thing, or everything's going to go to shit. And I think that's the point where you have to have faith in the DM, in that, okay, yeah, even if I have a horrible roll, stuff may go to shit and unexpected things are going to happen, but the DM's kind of guiding this thing in such a way that it's not going to be maybe a total party kill kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Right. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be unexpected. Shit's going to happen, but somehow we're going to get through it, kind of a thing.
Right. We still want to get to that end goal.
Right.
And you're right. Shitty rolls are not going to, that's demoralizing for sure. If you know what the end goal is, for instance, getting the mayor's daughter, that's our end goal. Mm-hmm. I still want that to happen, but if all these shitty rolls happen, it's just going to take a little longer. We're going to we'll go this way and that way, and we're finally going to get there. But see how many exciting things happen on the way now. Instead of just rolling good every time, you just walk in and get her, and then it's over. Right. That's not it, for sure.
Right.
So what are you looking forward to in the future? In the immediate future, maybe the long term, maybe both. What are you thinking there?
Yeah. So, I think in the immediate future, I'm going to try these new dice that I got.
That's right. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. So, awesome. I found these dice, and I'm going to dig one out here. So they're critical hit. Let me see if I can. Maybe you can't see it too well. I don't think it'll focus, will it?
Yeah, there's some images on there, I see.
Yeah, so there's images. It's kind of hard to tell what they are, but there's like hands, arms, legs, kind of a thing, right? And so you get a bunch of these dice, and there's 6 of them, or 4 that come in the critical hit, and you get this chart that tells you what the different symbols mean.
Oh, gotcha.
And so if somebody rolls like a 20, whether it's a player or a character, right, they get a critical hit. And so what they get to do is they get to draw one of these dice at random. And so it might be a torso damage, head damage, leg damage, arm, whatever. And that goes against the monster maybe that's attacking them, right? Or the monster maybe goes against them if the monster rolls high. Yeah. And so I'm looking forward to trying those. And
give us an example. What's one on the sheet there that?
Yeah. Okay. So here. So we'll go with this slashing torso one. Let's see.
Okay.
Right at the top there.
Got you. Yep.
So that one says, so if somebody pulled out the slashing torso die, they would roll that. And if it landed on this symbol, it's got a picture of a guy partially bent over with a sword stuck up his bum. Like he got stuck in the ass with a sword, and it says, pierced backside. It says short rests take twice as long for 1d4 days. Attacker gets 1 free attack as you reach back to try to soothe your pierced ass.
I love it.
Right?
All right.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun stuff. So they actually had, you could buy the cards that tell you what all these symbols mean. But in looking at them, some of them were kind of deadly to the players. Yeah. And I'm like, it's okay to maybe have 1 or 2 deadly things, but I don't want so many deadly things in there. Right, so I kind of went through and I basically took a screenshot of theirs, and then I deleted all of the text and then rewrote the text for ones that I thought were too violent or too, game affecting. And so I toned them down a little bit. So because I want it to be fun, like, for example, the pierced backside when I didn't want somebody to, bleed out of their rectum and die. Right. but I want it to be fun. They've got to, maybe sit on a cushion for 5
Sure.
days, kind of a thing, unless they find some healing potion or
Right.
something. So, so I kind of wanted it to be fun and hilarious rather than horrible. And so that's for critical hits. But then they also have a group of dice for if you roll like ones, so critical fumble, like for a melee or a thrown weapon, or if they're using like a bow or a ranged weapon. And so on the fumble melee, so if somebody is attacking and they roll a 1, then they take the melee dice. They don't get to pick the dice. They have to take the melee dice because they're in melee with the weapon, right? They roll it. So the first one on there is dropped weapon. So you roll a 1 and it says, oh, the weapon falls at your feet. If the enemy grabs the weapon, they get advantage on the next attack.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So there's stuff like that. Or they might roll it, or they might they might get a 1 and then they roll the same dice and maybe it comes up with wrong target. Attacker roll, then the attacker, whichever the character is, has to roll again to see if they hit an ally or an enemy closest to them, whichever one is close. Yeah.
Nice. Hey, you're out of focus. Focus yourself back in and we'll go back over some of this again.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, let me try. What do I need to do here?
I don't want to be out of focus for the rest of the thing.
Hold on. Let me do a quick fix here. I hate when that happens. Camera. Here we go.
Okay, there you go.
All right.
All right, so we can go back to that then. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. And that's great. And the reason I like that is because as a DM, you have so many things that you're trying to keep track of in combat.
Right.
I do it myself. I end up getting a little stale on both critical failures and crits on a hit. It tends to just sort of be this. I tend to give the same description. I forget that a lot of times I say you slipped in the mud or your foot.
Yeah.
I tend to use that one over and over again. So I can see where this would be good because I forget that on a failure, you could have dropped your weapon. It could break. It could be stuck in your enemy. It could be stuck on the ground. I forget all these really cool things that can happen because, especially my combats anymore, I'm trying to run them so quick and, they're just like crazy and in the like a real combat. And I forget that we need that flavor of when things go really good or if things go really bad. And I think that's really cool.
Well, I thought too, to make it fun. So I've got this box that I got. It was a Halloween thing, right? On Halloween. But I thought where they have the critical hit and they pick a dice out to see what damage they did and where they did it. You put the dice in here, you shake it up and then you have them reach into this box of death, right? And they pull out, and then the character pulls out, the player pulls it out, and it's fun. It gets revealed to everybody, even me, as to what they did. So
let's do one. Let's say that I rolled a 1.
Okay, so you rolled a 1.
I'm a great barbarian. I'm an orc barbarian.
Okay,
and you said roll to hit.
Yep,
so
roll a hit. You rolled a 1. And I said, oh, shit.
Oh, crap. Look, I rolled a 1.
Okay, so then we shake up the box.
All right. And then I'm going to reach in.
You're going to reach in here and draw the dice. All right.
Let's see how bad my critical failure was.
Yeah, so now we got to roll this.
Oh, we roll that too?
Yeah, so you pull this out. You just pull out the dice, right?
All right. Okay, so I roll that.
To see how it came up. So let's roll it. Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
Oh, no. When your DM says, oh, shit, you're in trouble.
Yeah. So that's one of the deadly ones. So that's got a picture, and it's hard to see, but it's a picture of a heart with a sword sticking through it.
Sword in it. All right.
And it says, broken heart. Victim drops to 0 hit points.
Oh. That was on my critical failure because I rolled a 1?
Yes. Whoever you attacked. So you rolled to attack.
I rolled a 1 to attack.
Yes. So whoever you were attacking, so if you were attacking a monster, I would draw this out for the monster, and I would say, oh, well, you just stabbed the monster in the heart. Oh, wait.
No, that would have been on a 20.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shit.
No, that's okay. So with the first one, I rolled a 20, and I stabbed him in the heart. Now let's go on the other side.
I'm a new DM.
So that was on the good side. On the bad side.
Okay.
Okay. I
All
rolled a
right.
one.
You rolled a 1. So what were you attacking with?
I'm a orc barbarian, so I used a big battle axe.
Okay. So it was just a melee. It wasn't a thrown weapon. It wasn't a bow. You were just hitting them with a sword, right?
Right.
All right. So we grab this dice out here. So this little red dice.
Okay.
And we'll roll.
So I roll that.
You roll it. Okay. Ooh. Okay. So that is wrong target.
Oh, which means
Attacker. Okay. So then you have to re-roll, and whichever is closest to you, ally or enemy, that's who you're going to hit.
Oh shit!
And I guess if you were equidistant from an ally or an enemy, you could roll a dice to see,
Right. Oh crap.
Yeah. So then you roll, and if you hit them, then you got to roll damage on your ally and see how much damage you did to your ally. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So that was good. I needed a little practice run through with that.
Well, we worked all the bugs out on this.
Right. Right.
Funny. Yeah. All right. So I had something that led me into another question. Let me think what it was. So being a new DM,
yep,
you're probably fairly holding on to the rules pretty tightly. Do you have anything that you're thinking homebrew, or is there any rules that you're thinking about changing that you'd like to see maybe work differently?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I'm still trying to make sure I understand the rules as they are.
Me, then you'll just toss them out the window and change everything.
Right. Then I'll say, well, now that I've played with these rules for a while, they really suck, and I think I'm going to change them around. So, right. But because the campaign I'm playing with you're making a lot of changes with how combat works and the maximum roles that you can have for any of your abilities, kind of a thing. Yeah. And so I'm definitely taking that all in and seeing how that all works and how maybe I might employ that into the future. So
yeah, we'll see how it goes. We're still pretty new with my rules.
Yeah.
So we've just, I think, barely put our toe in the water with those. We'll see how, over the long run, how that works out, especially limiting hit points for sure.
Right.
But I've always combat's always been fun for me to describe and be a part of with the players. But I've always felt I use that phrase superhero, and I don't mean to overuse it, but it feels like it sometimes. But I want you to feel like these are all the hit points I have. Like I've got to protect these. Like I
sure.
This is it, man. So I got to do things smart in the right way. Right. And I always want that sense of dread when you go into battle that I could die.
Right.
Or on the flip side, be like, I only have this many hit points. Maybe I don't need to fight.
Right.
Thing. We can work something else out. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Right.
So, but I exactly like you when I first started out. Those rules are the rules, and they're there for a reason, and it keeps everything, moving. I've thrown in so much chaos now into mine that we'll see if I go back to the old way because it might be too much.
Right.
I don't think so yet, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. So, but
yeah, I think you're right. I think that's one of the things that I'd say if there's one thing that kind of gives me pause when I'm writing a campaign is I say, okay, I want the characters to meet with this guy and maybe get a data download and maybe this will be some character that they can go back to time and again for more information or something. But then I think, well, the tendency is, I think, for players sometimes when they meet a new character, if they're not getting what they want right away, they just try to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's one of the fears I got because the players kind of feel invulnerable, I think, because they've got enough hit points and they've got some good weapons and, maybe they think, okay, well, I outnumber this guy, so he's going to give me what I want, or I'm just going to freaking kill him. Right. And so I think that that seems to me a lot of times to be a fallback rather than, well, let's negotiate, treat each other a little bit from respect and see where this relationship can go. So that's my biggest thing at this point, is trying to find that balance where, I know that the players aren't necessarily going to kill an NPC just because things aren't happening fast enough. That was my biggest thing with Harry Sackwriter, forgive the name. But yeah, I thought, well, you guys are going to meet this guy. He's somehow involved in this thing, but how do I keep you guys from just killing him outright if he doesn't talk?
Right.
And how do I make him seem like a sympathetic, believable character? So yeah, that was a little bit of a challenge, and I wasn't sure how that was going to play out, but it worked out pretty well.
And I'm guilty of that as being a player. When Barry was DMing for us not too long ago, and I think that was the not the cult guy, but we met him in the bar and we tied him to the bar, and I was just like, I'm just done dealing with this guy. I just daggered him in the heart because I wasn't getting any information that I wanted. So yeah, I mean, it happens, and I'm guilty of doing it too.
Yeah, right.
So Barry is one. When we talk about DMs, Barry is a good friend of ours. And I had him do some DMing for me not too long ago so that I could I was actually playing in 2 campaigns. You were DMing one and Barry was DMing one. So I'd made a character, this wizard named Swift. I made him a couple of years ago, and I was so excited to play him and didn't get to. It's like, gosh, I'm going to see if Barry will DM so that I can actually get a chance to play Swift. And Barry's a great example of, I mean, a lot of things happen behind that DM screen that us as players don't know about.
Sure.
And we can fudge numbers when we fudge numbers sometimes if it helps with the story.
Sure.
We can fudge numbers if combat's going a completely funky direction that could kill everybody or one player.
Right.
Just I don't want somebody to die just because of one bad roll. And so sometimes we're fudging numbers back there. Barry is a perfect example of a straightforward DM that doesn't fudge the numbers, doesn't pull things out of his ass in the middle of whatever. When he rolls bad for his characters or his creatures or monsters, it's all over his face, when he rolled bad, and he's just like, shoot. And he just goes with it. We just annihilate his monsters and his creatures. He'll throw a curveball once in a while. I know he's messing with us as a DM, but for the most part, if we wanted to do something completely outrageous and crazy and he rolled bad on his part of that deal, we just went for it. And so he inspired me to get rid of my Dungeon Master's screen because I know the roles that he's doing back there are legit. The game was just as fun. It was awesome. Yeah. And when I said earlier, sometimes, the fun comes from the failures. It's the same thing for the monsters and the creatures. Sometimes it's more fun when they fail. Right. So I've gotten away from the Dungeon Master screen and I just roll it right out with you guys, and you guys get to see what I'm rolling. And I really enjoyed that. Barry was definitely an inspiration to me on as far as letting the dice really kind of decide what's going on and not being so stuck in my story and what I think needs to happen with the monsters. And let's see what happens. Maybe it doesn't have to, maybe it doesn't have to always go my way as the Dungeon Master. And yeah. So there's so many different DMs out there and so many different styles that I'm picking up all kinds of things from different people. And but Barry's a hoot.
He is. You never know what's going to happen with Barry, and every one of his characters has got some hillbilly kind of a name. It's just
crazy accent.
Oh my God!
We were talking at Dungeon Master Coffee the other day that we were talking about Barry, and Barry just doesn't give a shit as far as keeping your characters alive.
No, he doesn't.
If you messed up,
I say you die, you die.
If you messed up. Yeah, and you die. That's how Barry's just like. And then you die. You screwed up.
You almost had a TPK, a teleported kill, on that air barge thing we were on. That I think your character threw somebody into one of the hover jet engines, and
it did, and it messed up the propeller, and then we're gonna crash. It still had 3 working propellers. I don't know why we had to crash, but
right.
But and then Barry told us that after that session was over, he's like, if that thing would have crashed, if you didn't all die, a bunch of you were probably going to, just like nonchalantly, like,
yeah, right.
That's what was going to happen. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
People are scared to play with Barry.
Yeah.
I know one person. I think, Ben's not. Ben loves Barry. So this is not a slight in any way. But I think Ben's scared to play.
I think he's hilarious to play with. You never know what the fuck he's going to come up with.
I know. I think Ben thought for sure, oh shit, Barry doesn't care. He'll just kill my guy my character that I love. So funny. All right. Well, we've been at this for almost an hour and a half. Do you have any parting words to other new DMs out there?
Yeah, I would say, you know what? If you think you want to do it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hold back because you think you're not good enough, you don't know enough, you're not sure how things work. Just get in there and do it. And if you're not sure what you're doing, kind of be honest with the players and say, well, I'm not sure how this will work. How do we think it should work? And if you and the players come up with some idea for how you want some particular game mechanic to work or something, and you like it, go with it. And so I'd just say get out there and start. And, start small. And, you don't have to be like me. Yes, right. You can just start with the book and some paper and some character sheets and get going. And before you know it, you'll slowly find other stuff that you think, oh, I want to bring this in. And if you think you got a little bit of a creative bone in you, you can write your own stuff. And if you don't, there's literally thousands of campaigns out there that you can grab and just go with that. So
yeah, I have so many campaigns around here that you could never play them in a lifetime. I don't know why I have so many and why I keep collecting more, but
right. And there's always more players than there are DMs.
Yeah.
So DMs are valuable commodities. So
yes, we
want
are.
to be one because without the DMs there are no players. So
right, that's great advice. Just go for it.
Yeah,
100%. So all right, well, thank you for being on The Most Rad Nerd. That was a lot of talking to you. I love hearing what you had to say, and your energy is so great.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for being a DM.
You're welcome. Thanks for being in the campaign.
It's so fun. All right, everybody, I am Benito Garcia, The Most Rad Nerd, and my guest, Bill.
Yep.
I don't do this wrong. Bill Newman over here.
Got it.
So look for them, his whole crew on Galactic Driftwood podcast.
Yep.
Facebook. I got it up here. We can bring up the other one. You guys do shows every couple of weeks, every month?
We do. We release a new show usually every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, so go check them out. Your crew is fantastic.
Thank you.
You guys talk about all kinds of great nerd stuff and science fiction stuff, and I always love being on the show as a guest. So,
yeah.
All right, everybody.
All right.
So everybody have a good time playing Dungeons and Dragons or whatever RPG you play.
Right. Take care.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.